Alrighty. Transition. We're gonna let Donde wait for a little bit, but before we actually let him speak, I'm in control now. I have the power, so I will unmute him when I feel like it. Maybe I'll just never unmute him, and we'll just keep him at 0 the entire show. Maybe we can see his best miming skills. You know, I would like to see Donde put on some face paint and just mime the show for us. I don't know about anybody else. Welcome back. We are in Season 2. Me not speaking might result in your highest score. Correct. You can only go up from before. Welcome to Season 2. This is Episode 1, the premiere episode of Around the Saloon. We are back. We are coming at you with a new THL season that just started today. And on top of that, we have... No, don't do it to me, Ron. Damn it. On top of that, we have Nerfs that were announced today. So we have lots of stuff to come at you. And we are super excited. But before we can talk about these lovely new faces and Donde, we have to talk about our returning Season 1 champion. The man with the Togwaggle crown himself, Mr. Isicles. Welcome back. How's it feel? Does it feel great to be a winner?
It does. It really does. I'm trying to teach Ron how to win also. So, it's good to have some experience to go by. It gives me some actual, something I can concrete I can talk to him about. So let him know how to appear on the show and to win. So.
Ron is in chat right now.
Yes,
so what happened was at the end of Season 1, I tallied up the number of wins for each cast member, and Isicles here had 3 total wins, with the final episode, the season finale, being his 3rd win, and Ron had 2. So Isicles ended up being the Season 1 champion. So he's going to carry this Togwaggle crown with him through the remainder of his Saloon career. And we will have a new crown with you. Not with you, but whoever wins tonight will have a new crown for next week. I don't know what it'll be yet. I haven't decided. I haven't made it. Maybe we'll go Lich King. I'm not really sure. We'll figure it out. Lich King was going to be the OG crown, but it was a lot more work to do than this Togwaggle one. I didn't feel like doing it, so maybe that's what we'll do for Season 2 here. Before we get to the new peeps, let's talk to our resident least favorite board member. How are you doing, Donde?
Excuse me. I didn't know that... I don't really want to insult any board member particularly, so I like them all. And I'm doing well. I'm excited to be here. I think my 3rd time overall. Looking to, have good conversations with my friend Isicles and Lotus Knight, and Geranium Battle, first time that we've actually spoken. So this should be a fun evening.
Yeah, excited. We have added 2 new members to the rotation. So we lost a couple of members at the end of last season. Let me get you a BRB. Markshire will not be returning this season. Neither will Boozy Boy.
He's the least favorite board member.
Wow, ouch. Neither will Boozy Boy, but Booze was not really there anyway, so I don't think I think that will be fine. So replacing Markshire and Booze are Lotus Knight and Geranium Battle, and then Mr. Brushy Tuna is obviously not with us, but he has a seat being saved for him for whenever he returns. So let's get to Lotus first. Lotus, welcome to the show. Are you excited to be here?
I'm very excited. I've watched the show a lot. This is actually the THL show I've watched the most by far, including the shows I'm in. So I'm really excited to be here, to have fun, and to dunk on Donde.
Dunk on Donde. That needs to be a THL team name. I'm starting it next season. If anyone would like to join the Dunk on Donde team next season, hit me up. We will have a team in all 5 THL series. And lastly, we have our final new cast member, final of 2, I guess, Mr. Geranium Battle. How are you doing today? Are you excited to be on the show?
I'm extremely excited. There used to be a different person who was going to compete on this show, Steffi, and I'm actually facing her later this week.
Ooh.
In the THL season. I was hoping to beat her twice in 1 week, but can't make that happen.
Can't happen. Nope. You'll just have to beat her in spirit, and then wait a minute. No. You can't beat Steffi later this week because she's on my team. So yeah, not happening.
I didn't realize that.
Key mistake.
I didn't put 2 and 2 together there. Yep. Never mind. Not happening. Losing to Steffi is what's gonna happen. We're gonna prep. Anyways, I'm gonna stop talking. We're excited to be back. Let's get right into the mulligans because we have a lot of Nerf talk to talk about. I'm super excited. I'm stalling because I am editing the stuff that's going to be on the screen. We don't want dead air. That's right. I had a radio show in college. That's what that means. And there we go. All right, let's start top left, move our way around clockwise, just like normal for our first question, starting with our returning overall champion, Icicles. We're going to start talking about Mage and those Mage nerfs that hit. And we're going to talk about the one, the only Lunacy and Spell Mage. And Icicles, starting with you, will Spell Mage maintain its meta position post nerfs?
Considering its meta position right now is 30% of the meta, the easy answer is no, it will not. I think it's still going to be playable. I think some crazy people will probably still keep Lunacy in the deck. The problem with the nerf to Lunacy, I think it's doing exactly what Blizzard wanted. They don't want it to be the power spike card. And putting it at 4 mana means that the matchups where it is most useful, it becomes very, very unplayable because spending 4 mana on that turn to basically do nothing and set yourself up for later means you're just getting smacked in the face even more than you already were. And the decks that you have the time to actually play Lunacy out on turn 4 are the decks you didn't really want Lunacy to begin with, like Priest and Warlock. Those are the decks where you just want your burn and you want to try to kill them over the top because a lot of the cards that Lunacy gave you were more control-y type cards and sometimes card draw. And when you're playing against a deck that is totally fine with you drawing yourself into fatigue and also not playing that many things for you to control against, the cards that Lunacy gave you weren't particularly helpful. So I don't think it's going to be as prevalent. There will still be people that play Spell Mage without Lunacy. It will still be a decent deck. It will still have a place in the meta, just not a 30% overall place in the meta.
Gotcha. Donde, agree, disagree? What are you thinking?
I agree in general. I think it's obviously very easy and very correct to say that it won't maintain a 30% playable rate after the nerfs because that is just absurd compared to any of the top decks that have ever existed in any oppressive meta. It's up there. So I think that's the easy answer. But obviously, I got to disagree a little bit with Icicles just because I do think that Lunacy itself will still be a playable card. I don't think it will be in every deck. But then again, as we were talking about today, like you don't always play it the second you get it. So a lot of the times it's just kind of like an alternate win condition possibility for you, knowing that you're looking at possibly drawing into things like the Grand Slam, which was really what you were looking to do anyway. And you weren't going to play that on turn 3 after you dropped a deck of Lunacy on 2. You were going to have to wait all the way to 7 to play that, barring any sort of Skull of Gul'dan shenanigans, which is still possible. So I would say that it is still going to be a viable card in the meta, and it just won't be like the 75 or 80% or whatever the crazy drawn and played win rate that it had was, because that's just absolutely not okay, especially with a card like Deck of Lunacy that does things like that and just alters your deck to the point where how do you realistically play against it as your opponent? You know, there's
Yeah.
so there are limited options, of course, and you know basically what the deck runs, but it's just so hard to play against randomly generated stuff, especially when that randomly generated stuff is usually broken and discounted. So yeah, I think it's still playable. I just don't think it's going to be anywhere near as prevalent, obviously, as it has been.
Okie dokie. Miss. Okay, yeah. Before I toss this question to you, we're gonna have to come up with a solution to this problem, because your name has 6 syllables in it, so I'm gonna need a shortened version of this.
Geranium, Battle, Naturia. You can just call me. You can call me Long Namer.
We're gonna do a different. I'm gonna do what I did with Brushy one episode, and I'm just gonna do something different every single time. So, Mr. Battle, what are your thoughts?
Thank you for the formality. Yeah, so this is where it pays to think ahead. This is where it pays to plan forward, because you're not just asking me this question. You're also asking the #1 legend finisher in Americas, in Asia, with no minion mage. You are asking Nails this question as well, because I asked Nails this exact question last time at the end of the Duos tournament. And, you know, if anyone else here looked and paid attention to the Duos tournament, you'd know this too.
Timeout. No, sorry, not timeout. I added the next question on, and I just didn't realize that it was on the live screen. So I hope you weren't answering that question right now.
No, not at all.
Okay. I'll fix it.
I'm in fact still talking about no minion mage.
Yeah. Okay.
So bringing it back, at the end of the Duos tournament, I asked the same question: would this work? Would Deck of Lunacy still see play if it went to 4 mana? I even predicted the exact mana cost, and lo and behold, here we are. The Nails said that it was primarily used against aggro as sort of a high roll card. That's not going to be the case anymore. You can't play it in those early turns against aggro, because you have to wait till later turns and you're getting smacked and you're dying. So instead, it's going to not be useful against aggro. It's not the primary win condition against control. So it's not really useful at any stage in the game. It's going to be cut for most of the decks. There is no minion mage that was using Cthulhu. You might still see that, but it certainly won't be anywhere near the same representation. We're going to see a huge meta shift with that, and just disappearing of a lot of no minion mages. I certainly expect that the next point that you're going to bring up will certainly tie into that meta shift, whatever that may be.
What point are you talking about? Lotus.
Okay, so I just want to add something, because I do agree that the main point here is that, yes, we're talking about a card that was mostly used to beat against aggro. The big thing here is, what is the meta going to be? Is the meta actually going to be more aggressive? Because if it is more aggressive, it is actually hurting Mage. If it isn't more aggressive, Spell Mage is still going to be one of the best decks in the meta. I think the meta will turn aggressive, but I'm not sure it will turn aggressive enough that Spell Mage will not be a tier 1/2 deck. I think it definitely stays in tier 2. It will stay in tier 1 if Priest and basically Control Warlock dominate the meta hard, because Mage against Control Warlock is just, oh, you play Mask of Cthulhu twice and you kind of won. There's nothing they can do. They're going to take 20 damage to their face. So my thought here is Spell Mage will maintain an interesting meta position in that it will be a counter to super greedy control decks or just slow control decks, but no, it's not going to have the play rate that basically every single deck play, or every third deck you face on ladder is it. No, that's not going to happen anymore. I hope. I don't want to lose to Lunacy anymore.
So we're gonna take that, this discussion of Spell Mage, and I would give, some guesses as to what we're going to transition into, but I feel like you already know because I accidentally threw it up on the screen.
You sure?
Yeah. We're going to start with Lotus, and we're going to loop back around reverse order we just came from. I want to talk about my favorite deck, my favorite archetype of this expansion, because it includes the best card with the best entrance animation of the expansion. And let's talk about Ping Mage here. So I want to know, with these nerfs coming in, the spell not spell damage, to Spell Mage, to Pin Flinger, to I guess Watch Post, maybe no. But is this time for Ping Mage to shine? Lotus, is it time? Is it time to ping?
No, it is not the time for Ping Mage to shine. I was actually facing icicles during the whatever you call the launch of patch 20.0. I was playing icicles a lot because we were only able to queue against each other, and it was a fun set of matches. And we were playing a lot of different. He was playing a lot of different mage decks against me, and Spell Mage felt good. Bing Mage did not. I think the main issue with Bing Mage is just you can go with the Star Scryer package and just basically say, I'm not going to run a lot of spells so I get consistent wildfires, or I can go less consistent, play the spells, but just not have a consistent way of getting the core piece of my deck. I'm not going to win if I don't get that 2 mana upgrade my hero power. Bing Mage just doesn't have a great standing. You don't have a lot of good tools if you're going for the more consistent version to control against aggro and to control against mid-range decks. Paladin is still going to be a thing, which is very annoying, and right now you barely get to turn 10. You're still not going to get to turn 10 after. So I gotta say that I don't think Bing Mage will shine, no, unfortunately.
All right, I think you are significantly wrong, but it's not my turn to tell you that. So, Geranium, son of Mr. Battle. What are your thoughts here?
Yes. Well, we're not talking about my father here. In fact,
of course not.
I'm going to. In fact, I think that Lotus is significantly right, unlike your thoughts, because Ping Mage just doesn't have sort of the presence against that early aggression that I think the meta is going to shift to when the sort of high-power mid-range decks are going to be mostly taken out. I think that the Ping Mage has a pretty good matchup against some aggressive decks, but that's only when it keeps drawing its power cards consistently, and I don't think it draws its cards consistently. When it doesn't have some of the crazy refreshing waters that Mage normally relies on, when it doesn't have the same draw power, then it's not going to be able to get the high power board clears against the token druids. It's not going to be able to consistently get the minion removal that it needs against the demon hunters and the and Zulocks and everything, and it's really just not going to be able to keep up. I think that no minion mage might still be around because it still has quite a few different board clears where you don't have to have setup in order to get those board clears. But I think that Ping Mage specifically, you need to get the setup, you need to get to 10 mana to get your Mordresh, you need so many different things, and I think all those things added up together just adds up to, well, we saw not much great performance in the Octathlon with Ping Mage, even against lineups that didn't have the No Minion Mage.
All right, so 2 of you are wrong. Donde, what are your thoughts?
I'll at least give you a conditional situation here. So I do think that Ping Mage is it's struggling for reasons beyond No Minion Mage and Libram or Secret Paladin, however you want to construct your deck there. It's struggling beyond just that. If you look at the matchup spreads, it really only shines against Warlock and Priest right now. So if we do end up in a meta where Priest and Warlock are prevalent, and this could even just be like a pocket THL meta where people are bringing Priest and Warlock every week, it could very well be a viable deck, especially in something like LHS, where you definitely want to counter one specific deck. Yeah, maybe you end up bringing Ping Mage, and it ends up being pretty viable in that format. As a ladder deck, however, it is really dreadful against Demon Hunter, which is something that's probably going to see a rise in play after the the nerfs because they were being very oppressed by these crazy decks out there. So you're probably going to see a rise in Demon Hunter, a rise in things like Face Hunter, and those do very well against Ping Mage. So ladder, no. Tournament setting, Ping Mage, I think, will be at least considerable in certain situations.
Okay, so half right. Icicles.
I think Ping Mage is going to be great. I think this is going to be a really top
To
tier
the
deck.
moon!
All right, but here's why. So we're going to talk about more nerfs probably in the future. And so the one version of Ping Mage that seemed to be gaining some traction was the Hero Tower Mage. So it ran the Watch Post to sort of bridge the gap to that late game power that it could potentially get to. It still struggled against some of the decks that were prevalent in the meta. Some of those decks are getting nerfed also. I think it's one of the few decks that can probably still make use of the Watch Post even post nerf, because I think it still can take advantage of the delays, even if the Watch Posts aren't going to be just slapped into every deck just because, they still serve some amount of purpose. And I think it's going to be a purpose that the Hero Power Mage can take advantage of. The other thing too is one of the developments that I don't think has really been looked at from a Mage perspective is how much board control a Mage deck can put together between Firebrand and the guy that shoots the Hero Power at everyone as slow as it is. Combustion, Shooting Star. Mage has a lot of tools to deal with board decks. They haven't had to use them because no one's playing board decks, but you can put together a Mage deck that actually does counter board-based aggro pretty well. So if that ends up being sort of the top-tier decks going forward because of the nerf to Watch Post, you could see a Mage that looks to utilize those early game defensive tools to be able to get to that late game where the Hero Power really shines. And as Dante mentioned, it does do pretty well against the slower control decks because you can just put out that constant pinging pressure along with the big slam of Mordresh. So I think this deck does have some potential to be a legitimate deck to counter specific strategies. I think the one thing that it could struggle against that hasn't been mentioned yet already, only in passing, is the fact that it can't deal with face decks using their face to hit your face. So Demon Hunter, Doomhammer Shaman, those decks, Mage just doesn't have a good answer to because it can't really freeze face anymore. And you pinging their face does not compare to you getting smacked by a weapon by their face. So if that's not the meta du jour, then I think Ping Mage can be pretty good here.
Alrighty. I will take no such slander in this chat of mine. Dondang, look at me. Look at me. Look at me. Thank you. No more, okay? I know you're head of content, but I'm in control here, okay? I steer this boat. You think I won't mute you for this whole show? Watch me. All right. Next, let's start with Donde. So, let's talk about... No mute. Let's talk about some decks, not Ping Mage. We're not going to talk about Ping Mage because we just talked about it, but let's talk about some on-the-bubble decks that may have been held back from... reaching their full potential because of how much No Minion Mage was taking over the meta, along with Libra Paladin and Aggro Rogue and whatnot. So Donde, I want to toss it to you. What on the bubble, quote unquote, on the bubble decks will thrive post nerfs?
So there are a couple decks that I think will fall into this category, and one of the ones actually was one I hinted at in my last comment. Mid-range Demon Hunter, the one that uses the Inquisitor as the finisher. It just never really got to the point where you could reliably get to that stage of the game against these decks like Secret Paladin, Libram Paladin. So, wait, am I actually on mute right now?
No, you're not on mute. You're not on mute.
Oh, okay. Would have been fantastic if I've been babbling for 30 seconds on mute, but I guess that
no
dead
on mute.
We do it for the memes. That's all good. So yeah, I think like mid-range Demon Hunter is one of those decks that needed just that little extra bit of a few more turns in the middle where it could get to its final form, so to speak. So that's a big one, and I think Control Warlock is another one. It's not really all that changed from previous iterations, leaning on Ticketus, Yasharaj, etc. And just incorporating a few of the new tools. And it was good in the previous meta. It wasn't necessarily always a top deck, but if you know how to play it well, I think it can be one that is it might not ever be a tier 1 deck, but like in the right hands, a tier 2 deck is very, very strong and can be piloted on ladder to great success, and definitely piloted in tournaments to great success as well, especially when you can ban things you don't like.
Yeah, I mean, it was seeing play at, top 50, top 100 Legend in Europe as well.
Yep.
I think, was it Orange? Was Orange the one that was playing it in like top 50 Legend consistently?
Yeah, I mean, in general, too, though, when you look at players like Orange or GMs, of course, Orange, former GM, the capability that a lot of people have with these tier 2 and tier 3 decks tends to be above the average Legend player or even a below average player. So you look at that and say, oh man, I can do that, and then you realize you're going to have a bad time when you try to do it. But I do think that it is a forgiving deck with how much removal it has, and it can get to its late game plans. And of course, you can always just high roll Ticketus and blast 10 cards out of your opponent's deck and win the game on the spot.
That's how we like to do it. Lotus Knight.
Oh, we love it.
Okay, so while I was thinking about this question, I actually went on HS Replay and looked at the meta if we kind of cut the classes that were getting nerfed. And I think two interesting ones popped to me. The first one being Druid, that has two decks that could potentially come in Clown Celestial Druid. That would be just such a fun deck and really interesting. And that deck has pretty bad matchups for both Paladin, Secret Libram Paladin, and No Minion Mage. And that deck kind of pops in pretty well. It has, honestly, pretty average matchups around the board. But I think the star, and one of my favorite decks of all times, that might actually be doing a lot better and that counters Rogue really hard, is Rush Warrior. Rush Warrior could come in. Conditioning is such a fun card. It was my bet for kind of the card most slept on. It was the number 133 out of 135 cards in the ratings in Pat's rating system for the new cards. And I think it would be so much fun to have a deck that actually effectively uses Russian hand buff to just play a bunch of Russian hand buff riders or a bunch of minions out of your deck with stage dive. I like that deck so much. I want that deck to be good. And I think that deck is losing two pretty bad matchups. So I kind of think Rush Warrior has a chance. The final deck I'll add is Aggro Rogue, but I don't want to talk about Aggro Rogue.
That's fair. We don't want to hear about Aggro Rogue. Icicles.
All right, so there's some good options here. I kind of agree with some of those takes. Because what we're losing theoretically from the meta is, Paladin was pretty oppressive, but even still, like as good as it wasn't even being played as much. Taking out No Minion Mage might actually make it not quite as healthy a meta for aggro if they're losing one of their top targets. If things kind of balance themselves out a little bit, even with the Watch Post nerfs, I think we might not quite see the crazy aggro. So I also looked at HS Replay while Lotus was talking because one, I was gonna call out some decks that he didn't look down far enough, and one of those decks which heard a little bit about, got a lot of hype, was Death Rattle Hunter. I could see this one being interesting. It has some of the tools that make Death Rattle that make Demon Hunter good anyway, and some Death Rattles work pretty well with going against aggro. You have Death Rattle
just to clarify, Death Rattle Demon Hunter, right?
Death Rattle Demon Hunter. Yeah.
Okay, you said Death Rattle Hunter, so I
no. I'll get to Hunter in a second. I got a Hunter shout out here.
Got it.
But no, Death Rattle Demon Hunter with the I probably just spoke too fast, or my dog was whining in the background. Who knows? It heals itself. You kill its minions and it pops more minions down. So there's a lot of ways for it to contest the board. And the other one, Face Hunter is going to get the sort of the love here. But if you take out Mage and Paladin on HS Replay, the highest win rate Hunter deck is Primordial Hunter. Now, we've been seeing from Spell Mage just how good the Grand Slam is as a Mage card, but it really is a Hunter card. Granted, Hunter doesn't usually last to turn 10 to actually play it, but when you can pull it out with Primordial Protector, and then do some other shenanigans there to actually play in the Grand Slam in its home as a Hunter card, you can see this deck making a case for itself, especially if we do see those control type decks, because that's the type of Hunter that can flourish in a slower meta. The aggro decks don't really take hold without their punching bag of the Spell Mage.
All right. Yeah, you don't often see in a Grand Slam drop down from the Hunter side. I think the last time that was happening was when was Zul'jin still? Was that in when Zul'jin was in play?
Don't think they crossed over. I think Zul'jin was gone.
It? No, it was played as the 10 drop in Highlander decks. Yeah, that's right.
Went a little slower. Yep.
Yeah. All right, Dr. G, what do you think here?
Yes. Well, first, I'd actually like to take attention to something that Icicles just said. He did mention that if you remove Paladin and Mage from the metagame, but I'd actually like to change that a little bit. I think Icicles said that Ping Mage was going to be very good, so we shouldn't remove Mage from the pool. And then I actually think that there's going to be a different Paladin that's still going to be available and still going to be quite good. So I don't think we should really remove those from the pool entirely. Now, that being said, one class that wasn't mentioned yet that I think is going to be very powerful is Priest. Rally Priest is still here. It is being piloted by Xananan all the way to the top of ladder. He's consistent. He's doing extremely well. It is something that I try to bring to... why are you laughing? It is something that...
Because Hat literally just did a little back and forth with someone on Twitter earlier today about Rally Priests, so it's funny you brought it up. Go on.
Rally Priest is great. I just like to say it's great. It's and it's all the spell generation that you would really need in Priest. It deals with some of the early aggression decks quite well a lot of the time. It makes just like some really huge lifesteal minions, and then the opponent just usually has a hard time dealing with it. And the thing that beat that deck was no minion mage. What's being removed? No minion mage, and it's devolving missiles. It was the worst matchup, and it is going to be vanished from the metagame. So, another deck, because apparently we're listing two decks, is going to be actually another version of Hunter, which is the King Crush Hunter. We know that Demon Hunter is doing quite well with its version of King Crush, but why would you only summon one King Crush when you can use Leo Rocks and summon 3 King Crushes and deal 24 damage to the face instead of just 9?
Of course.
I think that Leo Rock's OTK Hunter is going to shoot up in the metagame. It's already seeing somewhat of a high win rate, but I think that removing some of that high roll potential that was against it is going to give it a nice little slot to fit into.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I will say this. I am surprised none of you mentioned the soon-to-be Tier 1 deck of Control Warlock. I'm actually surprised, especially Mr. Donde. You don't give me that look. You did not mention it.
Are you kidding?
No, I'm not kidding.
I mentioned it.
Maybe this coffee's getting to my head, man.
I talked about Ticketus.
You talked about Ticketus, but I didn't remember you talking about
that.
I think. Okay, that's a good point. I don't know if it's on the bubble. I think you can make that argument too. It's been doing pretty well.
That's
Anyways, fair. Yeah. Okay. Whatever. Fuck me. Let's move on to round 2 here. Face or trade. So as a reminder, with face or trade, the contestants have the option of going face, meaning they agree with the statement provided to them, or trade, meaning they disagree with the statement provided to them. This is a bit of a more rapid-fire round, so we're not doing as much analysis, but the takes tend to be a little bit hotter here. We do not have Ron on the show, so maybe we won't be all face all the time, but we are going to be doing 3 more standard questions for you, standard the format questions, and then we have 1 THL question at the end. So we have 4 total face or trade questions, last one being a THL question, and then we will get rid of our 2 losers for today. So let's start with who hasn't gone first? Yeah, okay. Mr. B, let's start with you here. Face or trade? Pinflingers, dead and gone.
Ooh, so I already said that I was going to go all trade. Ron Mexico has gone face too many times, and we need to have some amount of trades in this metagame. So I think that this is a very easy trade, though, because Penflinger is not dead and gone. Penflinger is alive and well. He is losing every single one of your minions. He is clearing off your entire board. He is the one trading instead of your minions. I think that Penflinger doesn't see some of the burst finishes, but I think that he sees a lot more of the control, and I think that Paladin is going to shift more to a controlling place, and Penflinger is still going to be there, flinging every single one of those minions and letting your weapon hit face, letting your 8/8 hit face, instead of having to trade into those larger things.
Alrighty. Icicles.
Face. Because Penflinger no longer goes face. And that's just why it is. And the decks that utilize Penflinger were sort of a more aggressive rogue that needed just that little extra damage face to kill you. And Paladin, which needed some way to do damage to your face, that little extra reach. Because Penflinger no longer does that, it no longer fits in those decks. Rogue has other tools to deal with the board, including Brain Freeze, Prize Plunder, all those cards. And Paladin can bring back the Bear Up Room combo if it needs to control the board. It really got the most out of the Penflinger just going face. The fact that it only deals with minions now just really limits the value of that card and makes it just not as effective of a tool. The fact that it can do both was great, but the fact that it can only do one, there are better ways to do what Penflinger does now in the classes that we're using it. And I don't think any other class is going to start using Penflinger that wasn't already, because it already did what it's going to do. So if a class wasn't already using it, they're not going to suddenly start using it. So I think we're only going to see it dropped from the decks that were relying on it to give them that extra reach. So bye-bye, Penflinger.
Darn. Alrighty, Lotus Knight.
Okay, so I'm turning my head to the east and to the west, and I'm seeing no Flinger by my side. That card is dead and gone for sure. I think what is going to happen here is just Penflinger was mostly used to go face, especially in decks like Rogue. There's no reason to play that in Rogue anymore. It cannot hit face. In Paladin, you know what does a better job than Flinger if Flinger cannot go face? Broom. You just say Broom, play the 7-mana weapon, and you hit your opponent's face, and you kill your opponent. There's really, really no reason to continue running Penflinger. Broom is just better, and Broom is going to be in every single deck from now on. So just put Broom in your Paladin and win that way. Put a value card that kills control, like the weapon, and unless the meta turns to weapon removal, you have basically what Flinger was doing for you, you already have. There's no reason to play a card that cannot deal 1 damage to the face every turn.
Okay. Lastly, and significantly leastly, Donde.
Not sure leastly's a word, but sure.
It is now.
My real misplay here is not going face. It's going after both Icicles and Lotus Knight going face, because I don't really know what much more I can add to the conversation here. It's definitely dead. It's definitely gone. Like Icicles said, decks wanted to use it because of its flexibility. The fact that you could use it to clear, the fact that you could use it to go face, things like Libram Paladin are just absolutely crushed by this. You had what essentially... I'm sorry, I got pinged by Kel in chat. It feels good to be wrong, because wrong must mean correct in this situation here. If you look at Libram Paladin, like a post-Liadrin turn, you end up having what effectively amounts to a flexible Pyroblast, in the fact that you can hit face 10 times or 8 times and then clear a 2 damage or 2 health taunt to go face with other minions on board. You don't have that option anymore. You can clear those minions, but you just can't get that extra reach. And like Icicles and Lotus Knight were saying, like, these decks don't run Penflinger before. They're not going to start running it now to take advantage of minion removal. A lot of these decks already have minion removal, so it's just as a finisher, as a constant threat, as a thing that you had to continuously kind of play around the possibilities of dying from hand. It's gone, and I couldn't be happier.
Okay, well, before you talk any further about Pinflinger, I'm going to let you go first on the next question because you went last here. So,
Yay.
Donde, face or trade? Libram Paladin doesn't survive the post-Flinger meta.
Face, baby. As I said, it does not survive. It, at least not in its current form, but I would say that its odds are that if you're going to play Paladin, you're probably playing a more secret-heavy Paladin. Even with the nerf to Sword of the Fallen to drop it to a 1-2 instead of 1-3, it's still playable and good. It's not playable and busted because you're still drawing things out of your deck and getting more consistently to the cards you want to draw and play in the late game or on curve. I don't think it's going to be as oppressive as it has been, but Libram Paladin itself is gone. It won't be the center focus of the deck. You might see Librams in some of these decks, but yeah, Libram Paladin is just, it's losing far too much with the Penflingers, even though that's the only direct nerf to the deck, because that's the only card that, you know, has the Sword of the Fallen wasn't in the previous meta, and Libram Paladin was still good. Sword of the Fallen just made Libram Paladin better because it made it more consistent. So taking away the Penflingers takes away the sole being of this deck. It's not the Librams, it's the Penflingers that cause the problems.
Yeah. Alrighty, Icicles.
I'm going to trade this. I think it does survive. It won't be as good. I mean, we've been talking about, like, we started the show talking about Lunacy Mage and how it's 30% of the meta and all this, but the deck that was dominating the meta with, you know, the 57% run rate was the Libram Secret Paladin, and these changes do hurt it a lot, but they bring it back down in line with other top decks. They don't nerf it to the ground. So I think because of the other changes that have been made, the fact that the watch posts are reducing power, and you could see potentially players trying to bring back the more board-centric and aggro decks, Libram Paladin does pretty well against those. It still has all the tools that made Librams good. It doesn't necessarily need reach when the opponent's game plan is to just smack you in the face. If you stop them from smacking you in the face and heal your own face, then they can't kill you. So Libram Paladin still has a role to play in decks that will benefit from the nerf to watch post. It won't be as dominant anymore because it won't have the same reach against the other side of decks, the control decks, the priests, the warlocks, even mage to some extent. You know, the weapon is nice for that, but it's not quite as flexible as the Penflinger. So it loses the power that it had against all the decks, but it still has a role to play against some of the decks. So I think it still survives. I think it still maintains its status as a fair deck. It's a deck that, even when it was dominating, still wasn't getting played as much as it probably should have been. So I think now the play rate will probably be more in line with the actual power rate, and it will still be one of the decks that you see quite often on ladder.
Alrighty. Lotus, face or trade?
I mean, Libram Paladin is a survivor. They're not going to give up. It's just, the deck is going to be around. It's a deck that's made basically to, like, throughout the whole last year, it was dictating the average power level. And the only reason why it was nerfed now is because it was so out of control. Blizzard kind of loves this deck. It still has a 1-mana 1/3 that becomes a 3/5 the next turn and draws your card, and all your Librams get cheaper. That deck, yeah, it lost Sword of the Fallen kinda, but you might still play it just with a smaller package. And the Penflinger's a bit worse, but if you put the weapon in, the weapon is going to deal a lot of damage to the opponent's face. Plus, you now can just run Broom. You just bring Broom back. You have the space to bring Broom again, and Broom is still broken. Broom was just so strong before. It won the mirrors by itself. It basically made the deck unable to be defeated by any board presence aggro deck. Just giving Paladin the tools to keep playing their overstated minions. And overstated because the Librams are just overstated because that's how Paladin minions are printed. That just gives them so much more strength. So I have to say Libram Paladin survives. And I think it's going to be still tier 1. I would be shocked if it's not.
Wow, tier 1. Okay. And Geranium Battle.
Well, I think that if I said that last one was one of the easiest trades, this is an even easier trade. This one, the Libram Paladin is obviously going to survive the post-Finger meta. I think that question should instead read, is Paladin going to survive the post-Finger meta? Because Librams are Paladin. A lot of the best Paladin strategies revolve around Librams. They revolved around Librams since that the Inception, since the Aldor Tenant got reduced down to 1 mana, since we've gotten those early buffs on the minions, and it's going to continue like that. The Veteran War Medic is a card that is played in Broom Paladin. I think that that card is going to see a lot more surface level play. I think that the Veteran War Medic really makes a board, allows you to do really well against other decks. If you're saying we're going to be removing Penflinger, then we're putting in Broom, we're adding the Veteran War Medic, we're making it so we have a lot more of a controlling Paladin deck, and we're still staying at least tier 2. There is, I do not see a world where Paladin leaves this metagame. Libram of Hope is such a powerful card that it was even being played in Mage.
Well, to be fair, everything was being played in Mage. All right, we have 2 more questions for Face or Trade. Last one for Standard, and then the final, or the rest of our questions in the show are actually going to be THL-centric questions. So with our last Standard question of the night, let's start with Mr. Knight over here. It's been a while since he's gone first. So let's talk watch posts, Face or Trade, Lotus. Both watch posts deserved the Nerf hammer.
So this is a face. It is actually true. I'm going to, before I answer, I just want to say I was talking to Tweak, the zoo specialist, the other day, and Tweak was just like, every time I see a watch post, my zoo deck is gone. And I think that's been a big issue. A big reason why Mage was so dominant is because the watch posts existed, and you could just jam them into whatever deck and have aggro die. Like, just look at a 3-5 that summons a 2-2. If you can have that played against Zoo, Zoo cries. There's nothing Zoo or any board-based aggro deck can do. And this was part of the reason why they were very dangerous. And they weren't that hard to fit. It's not like you were paying too much to do it. Especially the far watch post is just so strong. It delays your opponent by a bit so that you can do your own game plan pretty soon. I think both watch posts did deserve the Nerf hammer. I wasn't sure they were going to go with a 3-5 just because the 3-5 wasn't super dominant, but the only reason why it wasn't super dominant is because the main deck in the current meta was no minion Mage. So basically, that card was stopping all the minion decks, it just wasn't played as much because it couldn't counter the one deck that was dominating everything. And the other watchtower. We don't talk about the third watch post. It's just we forget it exists. So yeah,
maybe one day.
I think they deserve. I go face here.
All right, Dundee.
Yeah, I think it's a face here. A little less aggressively face, I suppose, as Lotus. I'm going to click a few minions on the way to the face, but okay. I do think they deserved to be nerfed just because they created such unfun play situations, like Lotus said, for certain styles of decks like Zoo, or just decks that want to churn through their deck as fast as possible. Just it really was so easy to fit them into decks in any situation and just kind of throw them down to disrupt. And even though they can't attack, they required an answer. So you were still getting some value out of them in a trading capacity, at least in most cases. However, now they are too expensive to play. If you try to play them on curve, you are giving up far more than you were getting as far as how they are able to survive. They cannot survive in the capacity they could before. You're basically doing a turn that is nothing and hoping your opponent has to do everything to get rid of them. And if they can get rid of them efficiently and then continue to develop their board or progress to their game plan, all you did was use your own body as a speed bump in the road as they ran you over on the way to their win. So if you like that, then sure, go ahead and play the watch post. But in general, outside of very specific tech situations, I don't think that they're going to be very effective anymore, as most decks will be able to handle them in some capacity at the point you will want to play them.
Alrighty. Isicles, face your trade.
To quote my pro and legacy teammate from Mexico, me go face. These cards absolutely deserve to be nerfed, and not necessarily because they were just like oppressively powerful, but it's just because they were too prevalent. And I think more so than the nerf is actually making them weaker, because they still do what they do. If our watch post still nerfs the other opponent's deck, Morshan Watch Post still spawns minions. It's still going to be annoying for aggro decks to deal with. The fact that they've been nerfed is more of a mindset, and players aren't going to be playing them as much because, oh, these have been nerfed, therefore they're worse, therefore I need to do other things. And so people like, Alosa's friend Tweak playing Zoo, and knowing that, okay, less people are going to be playing these watch posts, now I can play my board decks. And it just sort of is a self-fulfilling prophecy, even though the cards themselves were prevalent, but not necessarily super, super powerful. There were two of the highest played neutral cards. I think Blizzard generally wants to keep neutral cards from being just dropped into every single deck. I think part of the reason why they may not have been is because Cargo wasn't quite as good as it may have seemed on the surface. Like, just throwing them in your deck and then adding Cargo on top of it wasn't necessarily a winning strategy for most classes. Rogue got away with it because Rogue also had a whole bunch of other good stuff. But I think these cards needed to be nerfed. But I think they were nerfed in a good way. They were nerfed in a way that makes them still viable to be played, just not auto-include in every deck. So certain decks can use them as a tech card when they need to deal with those board strategies. But now they're not just staples just because they exist.
Gotcha. And lastly, Geranium.
You didn't make it easy for me to trade. I said I was going to trade in every single one, but I think after reading the question a bit more closely, I am still going to trade. I think that both watch posts did not deserve this nerf hammer. They deserved an even harder nerf hammer.
Oh wow!
I think that the 3-mana 3/4 that watch post is becoming is still going to see too much play. I think that it needed to either be nerfed down to 1/1s that it creates, or it needed to be nerfed to a 4-mana watch post, or it needed to be nerfed down to 3 health or something like that. I think that the 3-mana 3/4 that it currently is still too difficult to deal with most of the cards in the metagame. I think that a lot of the removal centers around 3 damage, and if it's not minion-based removal, and in order to get that minion-based removal, you need to play your minions out, you need to play into that watch post, and you still fall behind on board. So I think that the 3-mana watch post is keeping this nerf hammer from being as good as it could have been. It really should be nerfed just that teeny bit more. The 2-mana 2/3, 3 health is what we want. Let's penance that.
All right. More face is what you want. Alrighty. We have one final question. Our 2 newcomers are tied for second right now with 11, and then our 2 veterans are tied for first with 12. So, Lotus, Geranium, do you 2 want to be the first 2 to go or the last 2 to go?
I think I'm pretty confident.
First person to speak up.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, I'll go first as well.
Okay. All right. We'll start with Lotus. We'll just go reverse counterclockwise. That's the word I'm looking for. Lotus, Geranium, Donde, Icicles, in that order. Face or trade. We're talking THL. We're talking about the team that forgets to lose, but they remember how when they reach the championships and playoffs. F2L. Face or trade. Lotus, F2L lives up to their name this season in at least one series, and they forget to lose, and they win a championship.
I mean, it would be good after last time, right? They got really close last season with 4 of their teams.
Yes.
Yeah, they made it like playoffs and everything, and they couldn't even win once. Are they going to live up to their name this season in at least one series? You know, I got the pleasure of being with Donde for a very long time, where F2L was first really good, and then suddenly it was awful in Pro. And we were talking about that for quite a while. I think F2L got better with the introduction of NHL and J-Fan, a.k.a. Marty B, who just knows a lot of people and tries to bring just a lot of strength, a lot of that community to F2L. And I think he's trying to do that a lot with Wild. But is that enough to bring F2L out of dumpster? Like, is F2L basically good now? I actually have to say that I don't think that is enough. The level in THL has grown so much. It's just this is going to be a nutty season in so many of the series. Wild still has everyone's a winner. They're going to win again. They're the nuts. Hero and Legacy have some really crazy teams. And Bro just looks crazy. Bro has been, like, I haven't seen Bro in this level for a very long time. So, no, it's not happening. I think F2L is going to... this is not their season yet. They're great people. Marty is amazing. But, no, this isn't enough for F2L to win.
Alrighty. No one was saying they were in dumpster, but Lotus went there, I guess, with that. I mean, they made playoffs in every series, but okay. I think Lotus made the F2L shit list from that. Geranium.
Well, you know what? I said I was going to trade, and it actually became pretty easy this time. This is also definitely a trade. F2L, I believe, actually stands for first to lose in these series, because they're going to maybe make playoffs, but a lot of the still power teams are mostly intact from last season. Everything they're going to be going up against, I mean, like, they have HSA that they can go up against in Legacy. No, I'm just sorry. There's a Tonk team there as well. There's still... In Wild, the everyone's winner is extremely intact. It has not changed at all, and has won last season pretty convincingly. We've got in some series they've just sort of cut Itachi from the team. I don't understand why that decision was. They've got still all the same holdups and none of the new value, and even. In Pro, they're even competing against each other. I don't understand what they're trying to do. Maybe the Ouroboros will swallow itself, and neither of them will make playoffs. I'm not sure.
Trading.
But yes, long story short, I think that F2L is not going to pick up a championship. We already have all the merch that we need.
That's fair. They do have the merch collection already. Which, if I'm not mistaken, before I toss it to Donde, you can now purchase THL merchandise from your Twitch app. If you go down, scroll down a little bit on the Twitch channel, you can scroll between some of our THL merch options. Merch plug, baby, indeed. All the money we get from merch goes right back into THL, which has been quite a bit so far. So I'm actually really excited with what we're going to do with all this. On top of that, if you want to sub, you can sub to the channel. We never ask for subs on this show for some reason, and I think that's my fault. I think that's my job, but I just don't do it. So if you want to sub to us, feel free to throw that sub. I already used my Prime sub on Firebat, so I can't do that here, but if he wants to gift me a sub, I will gladly take it. Donde, face or trade?
All right. So the way I think about this is kind of like you're at the racetrack, like a horse race, and you've got the field is so large. You've obviously got the favorites, that are going to be. They've got the good odds. They've got the best odds, and a lot of the time, what they'll have you do is you'll bet like this horse wins, this horse wins, this horse wins, or the field. Same thing goes for like golf too. You bet the field. The field is just like the high percentage, most likely. This is the thing that's going to happen, and this is kind of what you're asking is like, does F2L win or does the field win? And mathematically speaking, you should always go with the field, right? Because like that's the most chances you have to win. But I'm not doing that. I'm going face. I am taking the face route here and saying F2L does get a W just because they're like the Yankees of THL. They end up with top talent all the time. Every time you see an F2L team get revealed, it's always a competitive-looking team. You never look at them and go, they're just going to be okay. No, they're going to be a good team. They're going to be competitive in every series that they play. Not only that, they're obviously proven winners. In Pro, they won back-to-back championships. They're always competitive in all the series that they play. They're making even more teams than they were before, and those teams are still competitive. They're not like splitting the talent between the two teams. They're just getting like 5 talented players for each team, which is ridiculous. When they don't win, you look at it as an upset, even if they're playing against a really, really strong team. So with that being said, I have to say that I think that they are going to pull out a championship somewhere on the lines. Hopefully not at the expense of one of my teams. So you guys can have Wild. That's fine. Go do that. But just a shout out to Rabobson, who has been kind of the mastermind behind a lot of these teams. Marty, very, very involved. Like, they just know how to build teams. They know how to run teams, keep the motivation high in the Discord, and just it's kind of fun to see what like an actual internal THL organization is capable of. Like, this is a team. This is an organization that grew from THL. It's not like an outside organization like Attack Mode or Faction that are bringing teams to THL. It's homegrown, so it kind of like makes you want to root for them a little bit, right? Because like this is THL at its finest. But at the same time, like I said, they're kind of like the Yankees. So you don't want them to win everything, and it sucks because like there's so many players that I love and respect on all these teams, and also my Anadon. That I want them to do really well. I'm just kidding. I love my Anadon. He's a very, very good guy, but I never want to. I never want them to be too happy. You know what I mean?
Wow, you really went off the rails there at the very, very end, didn't you? You
answer the question that you want to be asked, not the question that you get asked, right?
God.
All right, so there's a lot of talk about what F2L stands for. Is it forgot to lose? Is it first to lose? Is it fish to lake? And I'm going to say it stands for face to League Format Series winners, because I'm going face here. And the reason is, Dundee almost got there. He was very close to the sports analogy. I liked where he started, but he missed the obvious one. I mean, Dundee, I don't think you like the Yankees. Why'd you pick the Yankees? The easy one was the Patriots.
He was pandering to me because
I want to hate the Yankees. I don't want to hate the Patriots.
Fair enough. All right, so here's what the Patriots do. The Patriots have been lauded for draft capital, where they trade back, because their thought process is you just draft as many players as you can, you take as many shots as you can, because eventually one of those is going to hit. And that's what F2L is doing. They're creating so many teams, they're just throwing out so many teams in all these different series that eventually one of them's going to hit. So that's their strategy for getting a championship. And if you look across the different series, I think their best chance is in Wild. They were the runners-up last year, and what we've seen with these super teams, we talked about everyone's a winner being dominant last season. Those teams typically don't repeat. The only one that really has was F2L. But everyone's a winner coming back. You look at Pro from a season ago when Hyper Horizon won, and they're the lauded team, and this team's dominant. They brought back the same roster, but they didn't win. It went to For the Boys. So I think everyone's a winner is not going to repeat in Wild. I think F2L is taking over as the Wild champion. And I think in Pro, the team that won it last year For the Boys, they're not coming back in the same iteration. Hyper Horizon's still there, but they didn't win it last year. I think F2L is in a good place in Pro. I think their rosters are extremely competitive. And what's nice for them, unlike Swagoi, is the fact that F2L is actually in two separate conferences. So it works to their advantage. Both teams can get in the playoffs. If they both do well, they can dodge each other for the first couple rounds. It wouldn't be inconceivable for these two teams to actually meet in the finals to guarantee that F2L wins the championship. And then last season, F2L Red and Legacy, they're now F2L White. They're still a really good team. Legacy is competitive, but I wouldn't be shocked to see F2L making a run there. So I like F2L's chances across the board. A lot of good teams, a lot of good chances in all the different league format series. So give me face, give me an F2L championship this season.
All right. So you have to be careful there. If you're going to compare F2L to the Patriots, we might have to, launch a cheating investigation into F2L if you're going to make that kind of comparison. So they're going to deflate our card packs or something. I don't know. Maybe they have people spying in our servers
that
or
caused
something.
y'all to change the PR rules from Wild players. So
that's
true.
That's true. I'm gonna have to go back and look at our HSA server and make sure no one's spying and sending information to F2L if you're gonna talk Patriots there. All right. So points for a sub. We need. Before I say no, Lotus, because I've stopped talking about the face or trade round. We need to establish something, and it's something. It was brought up multiple times last season, and it's that people who are not making it to the final rounds, people in chat like to, and those contestants like to throw last second points at them whenever the round's already over, instead of 5 minutes earlier when it's still going on. I don't like that, because it leaves me with the conundrum. So sorry, Lotus. No, we were done talking. But thank you for the sub. We much appreciate it. Wait, no, you pointed down, Blue? No, the round was over. Putting my foot down, the round was over. We're not throwing points up and down after we're done talking. No, not happening. No refunds. No soup for you. All right. Sorry, Lotus. Sorry, Geranium. We will see you again very, very shortly. We have 3 more questions, all THL-centric, Legacy, Hero, and Pro, before we throw you on mute. You know what? You can redeem these points all day long and spin your channel points. I am not adding them to the counter. Like I said, we will see you in a bit. Is there anything you want to say before we throw you on mute? Nope, just a salute.
I just want to say one thing.
Yes.
If you would like to play on stream this weekend, though, we're still looking for matches. We're starting to look for matches now. So DM me if you want to play on stream. Schoolstone is going to have time. Saturday is for Wild, and Sunday is for Standard.
Alrighty, there you go.
I'd like to say, chat, I salute you. Thank you for spending your points, even though it was scammed out.
Yep. Anyways, Lotus, you can remind people at the very end too if you want, because I'll unmute you when we get back. So, all right, we have one more round left. We're gonna talk. Is he gonna hold that the entire last round? Find out next time on Dragon Ball Z. We have 3 more questions. We're in our dual round with Icicles and Donde. I'm gonna reset our points here back to 0. We are going to start with Donde because he had 1 more point than Icicles. Crazy. I don't think this has ever happened where he's come into the... I don't know if he's made it to this far before. Have you made it this far? No? All right. This is new territory for Mr. Day. We're going to start with Legacy.
Good inside joke from earlier.
It is. We're going to start with Legacy here. We're going to talk about THL's long-standing group of close friends who like to stick together from season to season, the Pod People. Donde, starting with you, Icicles to follow. Is this season finally the Pod People's time to shine?
No.
Okay. Why?
I was thinking you probably want more than just that, but yes. So they're obviously, as you mentioned, a veteran team. They know how to win, and they're led by Arhat, who is a fantastic player, fantastic leader, not only of THL but of his team. But have you seen some of the loaded teams they're going to have to play against? Like, it's kind of like the corollary that we talk about with cards in Hearthstone. Like, there are great cards that don't see play because they're only great. You have to be busted to see play a lot of the time when you only have 30 slots in deck. And so the teams that are winning championships a lot of the time now have to be busted in some capacity. And that's just not the way the Pod People are. They're a close-knit group of people. They're a close-knit group of friends. It's usually the same, like, 5 out of 7 people that end up rotating through the team. Mm-hmm. But they're just not taking like full advantage of the PR. They're just not taking full advantage of everything that's afforded to them with the lower PR tables, and that's unfortunate because you're looking at a team like like Dad Legend is still there. F2L we talked about before. Fish, new team that's really really strong looking, and STD. They all seem more broken. And I would say if you're looking at like a playoff group, that's your 4 from that conference that Pod People are in. Pod People more in like that second tier where I would say like Flame Pimps, Bank Yugi Fan Club. For those who don't know, that's what the Pasca team translates to. Yep. Is Bank Yugi Fan Club. So I would say that they're like the second tier that could be a playoff contender, but I don't think that they're going to be much more than that, unfortunately.
Alrighty. Icicles?
I'm going to say that, yes, this is their time to shine, mostly because it can't be any worse than last season. Which is just rough all around. So, they have nowhere to go but up. And I think once you start going up, it builds momentum. You start getting confidence in yourselves and your teammates. I think things just go well for you. I think all the players underperformed last season. I think they all improved. I think they all post better records. And I think that gets them into the playoffs. And then once you get into the playoffs, as Yellowdar says, someone's going on a 3-game win streak. Why not us? So, Pod People, give me them in the playoffs. Give me them on a 3-game win streak. Let's take it to the top. Arhat is plugged into this meta. He's plugged into every single podcast talking about it. He was there when the nerfs were predicted. He's going to adjust as quickly as anyone. He's got the inside track with developers. I mean, he's got all the tools to help his team succeed. And I think Pod People is going to do work this season. So yeah, I believe I love the underdog story. So give me some stock in Pod People.
Alrighty. Moving on to Hero, starting with Icyclus here. We're going to talk about the Hero series overall. We're not going to talk about a singular team. So Icyclus, what I want to hear from you, are we looking at the toughest Hero series season to date?
Yes. Oh my God, yes. Like I just started because I see who's in my seed, all the 1 seeds, and it's just insane. It's like a who's who of all-stars and future Hall of Famers in the 1 seed. And then the rest of the teams, I think there's been sort of a subtle consensus on how to construct a good Hero roster. Either you take a ridiculous 1, 2, 3, or you take a 2 through 5 who are all within about 100 points of each other. And we see most of the teams filling into one of those 2 categories. So people are kind of caught on to what makes up a good Hero roster. So I think it's just going to lead to a ton of competitive weeks where you look at the matchups every single week, and it could come down to like 1 or 2 matchups that are really close in PR. And I think every single team is just absolutely loaded and is going to be gunning. I don't think you can eliminate any team yet whatsoever. I think every team is just right there. It should make for not only a really competitive season, but also a really fun season. I'm definitely looking forward to all being in one conference. I think just worked better for Hero. Last season was interesting, having the 3 conferences, playing every team twice. I think that it didn't quite lend itself to as much of a competitive scene in the Hero series, just because you didn't get to see some of the matchups that you would have. We're seeing every single matchup. So all the teams you think are loaded, they will play each other, and it will be exciting. So yes, this is going to be a ridiculous Hero season.
Alrighty, Donde.
So I actually disagree, mostly because of the point that Icycles just made. So I'm going to say that I still think that this is a very, very strong season. It's our most competitive series, but I don't think it is the strongest season that we've had. And I'm going to say it's because last season was the strongest season that we've had. And I think that 3 conference format, although I agree is not ideal, and it's not really kind of what you want to see in THL. You do want to see lots of varied matchups. I think what it did was it really allowed the teams that were super duper strong to rise to the top in their respective conferences, because the conferences were small. The competition was fierce within those conferences, but if you were going to end up playing teams, I'll even throw my team under the bus here a little bit. We got our teeth kicked in all season long, and we were in a tough Orange conference, and that really, really makes it so that you're just facing a gauntlet. And if you are not one of those elite teams, you're just going to get moved out of the way, and that's what we saw last season. So I think what happened was we ended up with a playoffs that was just all of the top teams, not missing any of the top teams. And in a series like we have where it's 1 conference now, you're going to end up with, some teams will inevitably not make the cut that should have been considered like a title contender at the beginning of the season. It's just because you're going to catch a team at the wrong time. You're going to catch, a team on like a post Nerf week or something like that you should otherwise be able to beat. So I think that I would say that it is still strong. It is still a crazy high power level, but not quite as strong competitively as last season. Though, as Icyclus mentioned, you've got people like Mr. Python, Lotus, and Arhat in the 2 seed, Rebob, your Mumked, and Molstar in the 3, and that's just stupid. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me, how that is even possible. I mean, like, I'm in the 2 seed, and I feel, like, overmatched by some of these 3 seeds. That's nuts.
Well, you're overmatched everywhere you go. But anyways,
I knew you were going to do that.
We have one more question. We're talking pro. Final question of the night. We are going to talk about one single team that used to be 2 teams. So last season, we had Swagoi Black and Swagoi Red as 2 separate teams in pro. This season, they have consolidated into one single team. Donde, final question, starting with you. Will the consolidation of the Swagoi teams lead to a powerhouse playoff contender?
No. Again.
Wow.
This is, again, a strong team. And like you said, consolidating the roster does lend itself to a likely improvement. I mean, they were already a good team last season, or both the teams, I should say, were good last season, but this is going to be better. But if you look at who's in the Black Conference with them, Hype Horizon, Faction, Brushy Tuna, and F2L are all right there. And they have to be considered favorites right out of the gate. So you're already looking at being the 5th best team in your conference at best. And that doesn't even take into account Group Process, which I think is a very, very good team. So this is kind of like, it's funny, I answered it the same way that you asked the Pod People question. Mm-hmm. It's a very similar situation, Pod People, a very strong team that is just kind of not broken enough, I guess, for a playoff. I would say not even a playoff berth. I don't even think they're going to make the playoffs, to be honest. I think that there are just too many good teams in the Black Conference. In order for them to make it, they basically need to destroy every team that is not in that elite level of teams. Like, you have to absolutely go out and get 18, 19 points every week. And then you still need to be competitive with every single one of those teams, like the Hype Horizons, like the Factions, and never score fewer than like 10, 11 points and sneak out a few of those wins. The formula's there. It's just so incredibly tough to do that on a week in and week out basis that I don't think that they will be consistent enough to get there.
All right. Bicyclist.
So I think Dante made some interesting points. I don't totally agree with him. I am going to only talk about Sugoi. I'm not going to mention any of the teams because that was the question. It was about Sugoi. So they did an interesting thing with their roster. And I think when you look at teams that join THL for the first time, especially in Pro, there's a bit of a adjustment period. And teams kind of have to get their footing. They have to get used to the format. They have to get used to playing on a team. They have to get used to just how THL is structured. So we saw that the Sugoi teams kind of struggle a little bit out the gate. And then pull it together, and one of them almost made the playoffs. The other was decent all the way through. But when they pulled the teams together, the interesting thing to me is they didn't necessarily take the 5 best players, at least by record. The 5 players that come into this new Sugoi team are a mix of the 2 teams, but not necessarily like the 5 highest performing players. So that tells me that they have the 5 players that want to be here the most. They are the 5 players that enjoy THL the most, that got along well together, that wanted to come back and put this team together for a reason. And I think that synergy together, that sort of that group dynamic is going to work for them better than the 2 split teams did last season. Plus, the one thing that hurt them a little bit was being in the same conference. I could see that being a benefit in terms of sharing research and whatnot, but I think just having one team now, the 5 players that want to be here, I think that's going to bode well for them. I think they do make a playoff run. I think it's maybe a stretch to call them a powerhouse team in the Pro, especially because I don't think there is a powerhouse team in Pro this season. I think it's really wide open, and I think they're right there in that same category with every other team. So I give them a great chance to make the playoffs. And like I said earlier, you make the playoffs, anything can happen. So they look to me like a good playoff team, and I think that might be enough. So I like them here.
Alrighty. Yeah. Ron was wanting you to pander to me because I'm on Sugoi. It wouldn't have worked. It's fine.
I speak truth to power.
I know. It's fine. They've been calling you Mr. Pander all day. You went against that there. Alrighty. With that, I am saying the words that I never thought I would ever speak in my life.
Neither, man.
And that is Donde won. Congrats, I guess. You get, God damn it, I don't want this to happen. You get about 30 seconds to say whatever you would like here. So, you, Donde, have the floor.
Thank you. I know we don't like to get too serious here. Obviously, we are a Hearthstone League format series. But based on events of the last few years and specifically today, I just feel like we should say a few names and we should leave it at that. Those names should be Dante Wright, Lieutenant Karen Nazario, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Rayshard Brooks, Stephon Clark, Philando Castile, and dozens more that we don't have time to mention. So it's not right. That's all. It's not right.
I think we can agree. I don't think there's anyone here who would disagree. With that, we might be back next week. I haven't decided. Next Monday is my birthday, so I don't know if I want to do this stream or not on my birthday. If I do, then it's going to be really weird, and we're going to do it up, and we're going to do it special. Bad show, cancel it. Justin's not going to be on it. That's for damn sure. Donde will be back, sadly, even though we don't want him to be. Drunk stream special. Donnie is not here on the show, so we can't do that, unfortunately. Only if Donnie is on the show can we have a drunk stream, I feel like, right? As the town drunk. I forgot to unmute the other two in here. Lotus, you are unmuted. Geranium held that the entire time and actually asked for feedback from Bitbeaker on his salute and changed it. So that was really interesting and stole viewers from the rest of the show with his own show. So he's not going to say anything. All right, we'll just let him. We'll let him just keep that going. Lotus, you have anything before we head out?
I just want to say, if you would like to play on stream one more time, DM me, DM Saku, DM Donde. We're always looking for people, and as new season starting, all levels are welcome, and it's a lot of fun to play on stream. So hit us up.
All right. If you want to be on stream, hit up Lotus, hit up Donde, hit up Saku. Hit up anybody who you think would be in charge, and if they don't know what to do with it, they'll just pass it along to someone who actually does. So if you want to be on stream, just, contact somebody. It'll get to the right person eventually. Sicklies, anything before we head out?
No, thanks for a great show, as always.
Alrighty. Donde, anything else?
I'm excited to be back next week if it happens. Thanks for taking us
it'll probably happen
to an awesome season 1 or awesome season 2 debut, Mako.
It'll probably happen. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. See, here's the thing. If I'm gonna be doing this stream from 9 to 10:30 on the night of my birthday, then it is going to be the most off the wall saloon that we've had. So, if we're ready for that...
Would you call it iconic?
Pros and iconic, actually. Yes. We'll do it upside down, Ron. We'll do it upside down. Just through the roof, off the wall stream. I'm not doing this on my birthday if we're not going to do it weird. Ron will have to be on it. Just there. So, we will talk to you in a week. Probably. Have a great night. Oh, actually, hold on. Do we have Heart Center tomorrow?
Sure do.
Yeah.
There's nothing to recap though.
Octathlon.
Oh shit, you're right. Heart Center tomorrow. Tavern Talk Wednesday. 9 o'clock for both. Show up. Be there. Show out. Alrighty. Everybody wave goodbye. Lotus, wave goodbye.
I'm waving, but you can't see me. Bye, everyone.
Lotus, you gotta wave. I'm just kidding.